Okay, guys, I think we will go ahead and get started. And Ankit is going to change the access so that folks can actually submit questions. My apologies for that. We will go ahead and get started. Great. So my name is Kara. I am in charge of strategic partnerships for the Computer Science for All team. Thank you guys for joining us today. If any of your colleagues weren't able to join, we will make this available for folks to listen and watch later. So as many of you guys know, Computer Science for All will train nearly 5,000 New York City teachers by 2025. That's a lot of teachers, but we want to make sure that schools are able to implement computer science education in a way that aligns to their educational vision. So for us, it means giving them choice and options. So computer science can be a semester-long course, it can be a multi-year sequence, or it can really be incorporated into any content area like science and math and art in middle school and high schools. And at the elementary level, we think it can be incorporated into core classes or cluster classes like art, music, or technology. Many of you guys know we have a public-private partnership that keeps this running. CSNYC is our lead private partner. They support us with fundraising alongside they fund for public schools. They also help us with convening stakeholders like research folks, and they also help us communicate what we're doing. Together, we really support a growing ecosystem for CS4All, and together we also work on the program evaluation. So we've hired the NYU Research Alliance to make sure we know what's going on and how we can improve over time. On the DOE side, we're really focused on training teachers, figuring out how to scale our pilot programs, and engaging students through internships and hackathons. So for those of you guys who haven't worked with us before, we think computer science is more than just programming. So we don't want kids to sort of do route memorization or sort of have really boring experiences. We think programming is bigger than that and more effective when you leverage things like physical computing and maker activities, robotics, web design to really figure out how to engage kids in and learning all aspects of computer science. So how are we going to train 5,000 teachers? We're going to have a menu of options. And so that includes SEP and SEP Junior, which are the programs that we run ourselves. So SEP is a middle school and high school program. We have about 40 schools engaged in it so far, and they learn block-based languages, Java, HTML, and CSS. We provide hackathons and internships, and that's really our full sequence model. So kids who go to a SEP middle school or high school will experience computer science in every grade level. And we had been running a pilot for that for the past 3 years, and we're now scaling that through CS4All. And this year, we also launched SEP Junior, which is our elementary school version of SEP. We're working in 11 schools, and similarly, we're figuring out how to do a full sequence of computer science at the elementary level. So students learn block-based languages, logic, and reasoning, and we work with folks like code.org. We also support folks in running courses and programs, and so it's really trying to fill in gaps and reach priority areas. An example of a course and program that we support is the AP Computer Science Principles course. We have 2 running right now. One is in partnership with Code Interactive, and another is in partnership with Berkeley through an NSF funder project called The Beauty and Joy of Computing. And then we have workshops. So we want to support teachers to bring computer science into existing courses. If they don't want to have a full sequence or if they don't want to run a full course, they have an option of bringing it into existing stuff. So we usually do this in 3 days or 30 hours of training. But we also want to have a pipeline of teachers who are ready for these workshops. So we're just introducing for the first time some sort of these get your feet wet type things before you dive into a full CS experience. We also have coaches. And so in each of the field support centers, which is a structure for the DOE, we have a computer science education manager. And they're really in charge of demand-driven PD and local context. So they're in a specific geographic region, and they do in-school support and coaching, as well as managing communities of practice. So we run the first 2, SEP and SEP Junior. We support folks in running courses and programs, and sometimes those are also run by outside folks. And then we're looking to folks like you to run our workshops in support of our coaches as well. So our partner RFP that we just put out has 5 different options. You guys have probably seen a lot of this already, but we want to make sure each one of these options is really accessible for all learners. It highlights the importance of creativity, and it's really student-centric. And so I'll dive into each of these 5 different partner opportunities. So the one-day workshop, we're having folks apply for up to 5 of these, and they'll take place between February and August of 2017. And the idea is that teachers will get inspired, they'll build a sense of efficacy and interest in computer science, and be compelled to join our other training. So just going to a one-day workshop won't count towards being trained in CS4All, but we really want to make sure we have a pipeline of folks who are ready for our more intensive engagements. We've been doing this for the past couple of years. Our folks on our staff have been doing it through code.org. So we had done this with elementary school. So we really want to build on the elementary school model that we have and figure out how to do this with middle schools and high schools. So as some of you guys were able to participate in last year, we run a STEM Institute, and that's in partnership with the STEM office in the DOE. And we run our own separate track. And so the CS track of the STEM Institute, it's a 3-day workshop. We run all of the logistics. We help with registration. All you have to do is run your own workshop. It's 3 days, and this year it's going to happen between February 21st and 23rd. And then you're required to run at least 15 hours of some sort of follow-up support. So that might be coaching, that might be additional workshops, and that's sort of up to you. And we want you to do that between the end of the 3-day institute and June of 2017. And the goal of the STEM Institute is really for participants to leave and be able to integrate a unit of computer science into an existing course. So they're not going to be prepared to run a totally separate course, but just integrate it into an existing course. So Short Cycle PD is really similar to the STEM Institute. The big difference is it's not DOE organized. So you guys will sort of be coming up with the structure, when you want to run it, how many days, over what period of time, and you'll be in charge of the space and all the logistics. But it sort of has the same goal as the STEM Institute in that participants will leave the training prepared to implement a robust unit of computer science through integration in an existing course. Then we also have longer-term courses and programs. So, this slide is actually incorrect. It still has the STEM Institute details, unfortunately. But the idea of these, and it's on our website as well, is that teachers will leave prepared to teach a full course in computer science, whether that's a year-long course or a semester-long course. And we ask that the training include 75 hours of PD and coaching. And you guys can sort of split it up however you see best. And again, the logistics are managed by the partner organizations and not by the DOE. So you'll be responsible for space and food and all the other logistics. And finally, we have this other category. So this includes things that we haven't really thought of. There aren't a whole lot of opportunities that we will fund in this space, but we are curious from hearing from people about what might not fit into our other options. So things like curriculum, or if you're interested in co-designing curriculum with us, running meetups, or other things we haven't thought of. So at this point, you're going to hear a change in voice from the person talking. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Ankit to talk a little bit about the concepts and practices that we hope you will outline in your application.
All right, hello everybody. Just quickly, I wanted to say that there was a question about one of the form fields. Somebody asked where there was a word limit. We are fixing issues like that, so let us know if there's any issues with the form, the RFP form. Okay, so concepts and practices. We used a co-design process where we started with teachers who were teaching this stuff in classrooms. And ask them to identify what students are actually able to do, what they're actually able to learn and to teach, convey in an engaging way to students. We started that process over 7 months ago in March, and over their work with schools. So we're hoping that these 5 concepts provide the breadth that students need in order to get a solid CS education, but there is definitely room for change. This is a draft. We are planning on publishing this in the summer of next year, 2017. So please feel free to comment, put in things in the other category so that we can see where our gaps are. These 5 concepts map to 3 practices that we think are sort of self-explanatory. We want students building. We feel that project-based curriculum works best for CS instead of sort of doing things the way that traditionally are done with coursework. CS allows students to make, and we want students making first and foremost. That means a range of things, as Kara has talked about. It's not just with code; it can be making physical things as well. Is everybody? I'm seeing comments that you've lost audio. I'm just going to pause. Okay, cool. It seems like people can hear again. So I'm not sure where it cut out. But just to quickly wrap up, concepts, 5 concepts that we think are pretty good based on alignment with K-12 CS framework, as well as what our local audience has been telling us through lots of co-design sessions. The practices are anchored by students making, and then we want them to be able to communicate, talk about the projects they make. This could be anything from an elevator pitch to a written sort of reflection. And then we want students to also analyze the impacts of what they're making. This could be social impacts. This could be ethical or legal if those things are relevant to that specific learning activity. So, with these 3 concept or practices, we feel that students can get into a range of different activities within the 5 concepts. If you go, let's see. It looks like our slides are also paused here. Great. So we definitely see learning activities that you'd be doing with educators and that you're giving educators to do with students as sort of meeting a range of different practices and concepts and not necessarily reaching them all. So here's an example of, we haven't actually built out an activity here, but this gives you an idea that this example activity is heavy on practices in abstraction, but doesn't get into the same depth necessarily within the other concepts. That's fine. There's lots of different ways to teach CS, and we're looking for different combinations, creative stuff from the community. Are we going back to you, Carol? Okay.
All right, so we are just wrapping up our overview, but keep on submitting questions both to the YouTube page as well as a Google page. So I know there are 2 places that we're collecting questions, but we will try to answer from both. And so just to wrap it up, we're really looking for organizations who have flexibility and responsiveness. So we don't want canned answers to our questions. We want you guys to be really thoughtful and talk about how you'll specifically meet the needs of our community here in New York. We're also looking for a variety in our offerings. So we might get 12 really great web design courses, but we want to have variety, so we're not going to accept all 12. So think out of the box in terms of what you're offering, and that might increase your odds of getting one of these contracts. We're also looking for geographic diversity. So for the folks who are applying to the Non-STEM Institute, we want to make sure that we can offer stuff in different boroughs. So if you have that flexibility, we encourage you to offer it. And last but not least, we want to make sure that these opportunities build on but do not overlap with our existing programs. So we already offer co.org one-day workshops for elementary schools. So we are looking for things that build on that but don't overlap with it. And in terms of what we're already offering in our courses, we already offer the Beauty and Joy of Computing for the AP Computer Science principles, as well as our work with Code Interactive there. So we're looking for things that, again, build on that. And we said this earlier, but we want to make sure all of this is accessible for all of our learners. And in New York, that means students with disabilities, English language learners, and diverse populations. And then we want our stuff to be inherently creative and student-centric. So the timeline, applications will close midnight November 13th. We know it's quick, but we want to be able to get out opportunities during CS Ed Week. So with all the momentum then, we're hoping to release our applications and make sure that teachers know about all the different trainings that will be happening over the winter and spring. And with that, I'm going to look at all of the questions that we have and try to answer them. But again, if you have questions, please feel free to write them either in the YouTube video chat or the Google chat. So I see a question from Norm in terms of the organizations. Will organizations have the ability to place parameters around teacher applications? Example, we would want pairs of teachers from schools. So for the STEM Institute, we require that as well. And so I think that is one that we feel pretty strongly about. But general other parameters, it will sort of depend. So we want this to be, again, accessible to everyone. So we don't want to really put too many onerous parameters for the types of experiences that teachers have coming in. So we wouldn't want people to have a lot of prior experience or knowledge. So next question says, many of the tracks require facilities such as conference and meeting rooms. Can we bill the DOE for those rental costs? So those types of costs, if it's not the STEM Institute, should be built into your proposal. So you can't bill us directly, but it can be part of your proposal if you need conference space in New York. And then the next question is, can we provide clear examples of what 15 hours of support looks and feels like? And so we're pretty early on in our experience with providing follow-up support. So we've seen people do one-day workshops. So they'll come in on a Saturday, twice a semester to make sure people have the type of support they need. Some people are doing individual coaching, so they'll go out into schools and do a couple hours there. And then other people are offering online support, so they'll have a virtual community. Other people are doing webinars, so it's really a wide variety of examples that we've seen to meet that 15-hour requirement. So in-person, online, and virtual. Well, I guess all in, virtual is the same thing. I think I'll answer this one, but we realize that the Google form only allows 125 characters, so we will actually change the limits, but keep on letting us know about this. So next question is, once organizations are selected by us, how will the opportunities be distributed to administrators, teachers, STEM directors, and schools? So we have official DOE channels that we can use. There's a principals newsletter that goes out every other week that we post our opportunities in. We also post it in other DOE official channels like the I Teach and We Teach newsletters. And then we have our own list of educators who we've worked with. And then now we have all of these field support staff folks. So we have 8 people who are in the field who have direct connections to schools and superintendents. And so we will make sure that this opportunity gets around to folks, but we also want your support. So if you guys have networks that you have leveraged in the past, it's always good to send out this opportunity to more people. So teachers cannot, next question is, for short cycle PDs, will teachers get release time from the classroom? So typically these have to happen after school hours or on weekends. And so the best way to do this is, we often do during breaks or during the summertime, so the teachers can attend, and we pay per session. So teachers will be compensated by us, and you don't have to include that in your budget. So teachers, you should plan all of yours on afternoons and weekends or during breaks. The next question is, what are the differences in expected outcomes for short cycle versus STEM Institute? Are the programs being evaluated differently? They are not. They're pretty much the same thing, except for they're taking place at different times, and the logistics are run by the programs versus the DOE. I'm going to actually pass this back over to Ankit to answer the next one.
All right, let's see. Understanding the program is geared towards teachers, yet I could focus on the concepts which should project-based curriculum student-centric. Okay, so we don't see too much of a difference between what teachers should be learning and what we're expecting students to learn. Given that there's such a short turnaround time for teachers to take this back into the classroom, we don't feel that it's a good idea to start at a different conceptual level for the educators than we would for the students. Obviously, time is short and teachers are adults, and so the pacing and the types of projects that we're asking teachers to do can be different. But the concepts and the practices that they're using should reflect what they are expected to go and implement in the classroom. The next question is, we have curriculum for one-day PD for administrators and school counselors to be able to support successful programs. Will non-teacher PD sessions be considered for this RFP? No, they will not be. Next question, for the short cycle PD program, how long number of days, hours should the program be? And I'm either going to give it back to Kara or she's going to tell me the answer.
It could be up to them. So it has to be at least 30 hours.
So at least 30 hours, but it's totally up to you on the max.
And how they're spread out over days.
And the pacing is also up to you. We expect sort of details about that and hopefully some reasoning as part of your RFP. To make sure our offerings stand out and does not reinvent the wheel, could you share with us syllabi for your current offerings, CS, AP classes, etc.? That's a great question. So you can, on our website, the same website that the RFP is on, CS4All, number 4all.nyc, if you click under academic programs, you will see the software engineering program, SEP, and the AP CS principles program. Under both of those programs, there are links to curriculum for the software engineering program that is a sequence from 6 to 8, 9 through 12. We're revising curriculum to fit a single template. So right now, only 6th and 9th grade is available online. For the AP Computer Science Principles program, that curriculum doesn't quite fit in terms of the project-based sort of focus of most of our programs, but if you go to that page, you're able to access the curriculum and sort of see how it aligns with that framework. Okay, I'm going to pass it back to Kara.
And so the next question I see is around teacher recruitment for STEM Institute proposals. Does a DOE or vendors identify and recruit teachers? So for all non-STEM Institute work, we will help recruit, but we also ask folks to help us in the recruitment. So we will definitely send it out to all of our channels and make sure it gets out to our field support staff, but we do appreciate when you guys help us reach teachers. The next question is, given a dollar range for the average grant, or we did give a dollar range for the average grant, but not for the other category. Since the other category is pretty vague, we didn't want to put an average because they're such different things. So sort of use your judgment based on the structure that we have for the other stuff, but we don't anticipate funding a lot of stuff in the other category. We really prefer folks to try to figure out one that works in our categories, unless it's really unique and you think it makes sense. So I will pause now for a moment. I don't see any other questions in here, but I will pause for a moment and let folks ask questions either in the YouTube window or in the Google Slides. And just to answer Ankit's question, in terms of what midnight is, we want to be able to review stuff Monday morning. So that is 11:59, not exactly midnight, on November 13th. Oh, sorry, that's someone else's question. So one more question that just came through is, do teachers need to implement the unit this academic year? So that will depend on which one of these strands that they're doing. So the STEM Institute should be implemented this school during the academic year, as well as the short cycle PD and the one-day workshops. But things where teachers are getting trained, where it's way more heavily over the summer, they'll be implementing in the following academic year. So mostly for the longer term PD courses and programs, folks will be doing that in the following academic year. I see a question which says, where can I find the applications? If you go to our website, CS4All, the number 4, ALL.NYC, CS4All.NYC/RFP, you will get to the overall announcement, and then on the right-hand side, there's an area that says timeline. Under timeline, there's a little spot that says, please apply here. If you click on that, that will take you to the Google form, and you can fill that out as many times as relevant. On that page, we've also linked to this sort of concepts and learning objectives matrix that we want you guys to use in the application, and hopefully that gives you guys some additional definitions about what we're talking about. And I also want to let folks feel free to send us more questions as they come up. So I have put my email address on this last slide, and you guys most of you should have it from the initial RFP that went out. But as questions come in, we will be responding to them on that same web page. If you scroll to the bottom, there's an FAQ where we've been trying to respond to questions as they come in. So I will pause now for just one more moment or so to see if there are additional questions. Oh, yeah, here's one. So there's a question around, are there any materials that we might be able to have provided to teachers, such as Chromebooks, or are all materials to be provided by grantees? When we ran this last year, educators were required to bring their own laptops. So in almost every instance, New York City schools, I haven't really run into a challenge yet where a teacher doesn't have access to at least one laptop for themselves to attend training. But other materials should be included in your proposal. So if you are running a robotics workshop, part of your materials should be one robot for each teacher to actually use in the workshop, as well as a class set. So typically between 25 and 35, depending on the grade level for middle school or high school or elementary school. So please include in your proposal if you have both materials that you need to use in the workshop, as well as a class set for each teacher to be able to implement this in their classroom afterwards. For robots too, you might think that kids need one robot per student, but oftentimes we find that they can do pair programming, or they can work in quads or triads and be really successful at doing it.
I want to say something about, so I want to go back to the question about make sure our offering stands out and does not reinvent the wheel. I think so. There's definitely lots of things that you can look at on our website and just in general. But to share in terms of that matrix of learning of concepts and practices, I think we don't see a lot of learning activities are professional learning opportunities for teachers around networks, and then data and information, specifically going to our definition, or the definition we're using right now for data and information, where we're really talking about how the computer changes how we analyze data. So we're not talking about statistics and analysis and building models. We're talking about helping students and teachers understand how computers change the game, how the speed and reliability of computers changes things. So if you're looking to differentiate yourself, networks and data and information are two good places to start. Yes, so the question is, will the slideshow remain open after this call? Yes, we will, and I think we can also probably post the slides as well as this Hangout. I think it should be recorded. We'll post that on the site. The URL again is cs4all.nyc/RFP. There's a question, will organizations be able to pull permits for NYC DOE spaces? The answer is no, unfortunately. Are the STEM institutes mostly aimed at middle school or high school? They're actually aimed at all three levels, elementary, middle, and high school. Elementary is another great way to differentiate yourself.
Great, so we'll use that teacher tool where we just wait one more minute in case there are questions that are just forming in your mind. Oh, sorry, there's one I did not see that is a little bit above, which is, will we be able to contact teachers before the PD in order to best meet their needs? It depends. Typically in the past, we've tried to limit for something like STEM Institute to that engagement and to the follow-on support. But in cases of the longer-term PD, and at times it will make sense for teachers to actually do some pre-work as part of their 75 hours. So it really depends on what you're applying for. For the STEM Institute, we try to encapsulate at least the intro stuff to happening in the 3-day workshop and then follow-on support happening afterwards. But for other things, there should be a way for you guys to contact the teachers before the PD starts. Okay, there's another question. Are the one-day workshops to be held during school days, or can they be done during Saturdays, PD days, vacations, and summer? So typically, our one-day workshops do happen on the weekends, after school, during PD days, and vacations in summer. So we prefer you guys to apply for that. In special circumstances, we can do during the school day, but it's harder for us to get teachers to get release time. So our preference is definitely it's definitely for Saturdays, PD days, vacations, and summers. Great, so if there are no more questions, we will end the webinar very soon. But again, this is not your last chance to ask us questions. Feel free to email me directly. My email is at the bottom of this last slide, and we will post answers to the FAQ page. So check that page first before asking. Someone might have also asked it. But thank you guys so much for joining us on this very happy Halloween.